You ready to go? Perfect. Okay, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the second part, I guess, of the AES Day 1. For people who are new, my name is Mark Sage, and I'm lucky enough to be moderating this panel. I've got a bunch of amazing experts. I'm going to sit down if that's okay. Amazing experts I've been lucky enough to speak with before this event, and you're in for a treat. So what we're going to do, I'm going to ask them a few questions. Then I want to open it up to the audience, because I think having your opportunity to ask questions is really important. And then if we get time, we've got one final question at the end, but we may not get there. So this panel is all about show me the money, as they would say. It's all about that ROI in XR. Hugely important. Little anecdote before I start, we did a meeting last week with a bunch of enterprises, and some of the people were involved here, about some of the key challenges that you're seeing, they're seeing in XR. Now, if I've done this probably 2-3 years ago, and before that, it was often about security. It was often about, trying to get the devices onto the network, getting people to use it. But actually, I think the question has changed much more now onto what's the value, what's the ROI. So here's an opportunity for me to ask some of these very clever people about what they've done and how they've done it. So to start with, we're going to introduce them. So let me start with Jenny, if I can. If you can introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how you got into XR.
Yeah, I'm Jenny Taylor. I work at Duke Energy, and I lead our virtual reality trainings, qualifications, and simulations. And we were really lucky enough to have a leader that believed in about 8 or 9 years ago that this was the way of the future for the enterprise and started dabbling in it. And we got really lucky during COVID to actually start doing qualifications virtually because we were on a travel ban, which was not nice, but also nice for us because we worked with the qualifying agencies to be the first to qualify gas and electric field technicians and headset. And that really changed the way we did business at Duke Energy in regards to virtual reality. I've been in the utility industry about 18 years now, and with this group about 3. So it's been a fun adventure.
Perfect, thank you. Kevin.
Good afternoon, everyone. Kevin Marcum, Delta Airlines Program Manager for the Airport Customer Service Design and VR. So I oversee all the VR for our airport customer service. So that's everybody you see when you fly, above wing, below wing, about 50,000 employees. Like Jenny, I was fortunate enough before COVID to have an executive leader that was interested in VR. Had me start looking into it. I had no idea about VR, never had a headset on before, so started looking into it and did our proof of concept before COVID, and then obviously stopped at COVID and brought it back, and we're rolling pretty good now with our programs.
Thank you, Kevin. David.
Yeah, my name's... Is this thing working?
No.
Oh? Oh, there it is. Sorry, I'll probably need to speak up a little bit. Anyways, name's David Yin. I'm the ARTech product manager. I've been with Peterbilt Motors for 27 years now, and my story came in from engineering, then went over to customer service, and then found myself working with AR, VR back in about 2015. We decided to put together an application that we offer our dealers. It shows wire harnesses for our technicians to help troubleshoot some of the more difficult and complex problems facing our technicians. If anyone wants any visuals, if you search on YouTube for Peterbilt ARTech, you can see what we have and what we sell to our customers. I was reminded that next year it'll be 5 years since we started this little business that we're running. So yeah, that's...
Perfect, thank you, David. It's interesting, kind of 5 years, 4 years, 3 years. It's the infancy thing, which we'll talk about a little bit more. Matt.
Hi, I'm Matt Shellenberger. I'm the consulting engineer in a group called Distribution Engineering Best Practices at American Electric Power. Been in the utility business since I was 19 years old, working on the line crew and going to school at the same time.
A few months ago?
Yeah, a little bit ago. I've been at American Electric Power for 28 years. I lead the group that we support all the engineering design tools, and part of that is making sure people are well informed around the National Electrical Safety Code, and one of the key components in that is clearances, making sure our wires in our facilities are sufficient distances from the ground and from other lateral objects. And so that's where I really got involved in building up training around using VR, because it's such a visual spectrum that we're training on. It only made sense to get it off the whiteboard where I used to train it and get it into the VR headset, and it's so much more impactful that way, and people actually call call me about things they've seen after we've done the class, and they recall things that we had in the training. So that shows a lot of impact.
Amazing, thank you. The one and only Brian Laughlin.
Dr. Brian Laughlin, Tech Fellow, Boeing Company. Man, been at Boeing going on 32 years now. I started when I was 6, so I'm actually very young. Gosh, I've gone through a lot of different stages at Boeing. We actually started, so fun fact, the term augmented reality was actually coined at the Boeing Company back in the early 90s by Dr. David Meisel and Tom Caudell. I'm working with Dr. Tom Furness, if you guys have heard any of those folks. We were doing wire wrap or wiring loom boards for the 777. So yeah, lots of background in this stuff. Today I'm a systems engineer and I'm working primarily with production engineering. And a lot of the applications that we're looking at is how can we help mechanics to build high quality aircraft at cost and at rate. And I'm also blessed to have a bunch of my Boeing colleagues here, guys, to come with me, so I really appreciate it. Good to be here.
Fantastic. And last but not least, Jackson.
Jackson Hisey at Nissan North America, Senior Manager, Service Operations. What that means is it's my responsibility to make sure that our dealership technicians have all the information, the tools, and the technical support to fix our customers' cars. And I had an executive a few years ago who saw the value of mixed reality, and he said, ROI be damned, go out and make assisted reality for our technicians a reality. And then he left, but we continued on, and he came back last week, so I'm excited to have him back. So big news for us.
Amazing, that is good news. Okay, so I'm going to start the questions, and I'm going to start with Kevin. I'm coming to you first, okay?
Okay.
So what's the single most critical first step for an enterprise looking to build a strong ROI case for XR? Especially, let's be honest, it's a tough economic situation at the moment around the globe. So what would be your insights on the first critical step?
Yeah, there's a lot to take in. I wish I would have had that question, in 2017 before I started, so I would have known where to go. But I think it's getting the buy-in and the input from the end user, our frontline agents that are actually going to use the program. When I started, I was trying to get the buy-in from executives, and I soon realized that I need to get the buy-in from who's going to be the end user of this program, and the champions out there, and then they can sell it to the executive level. We learned that after COVID when we came back and started the VR program back up again, and got to think about it for a while, and really started visiting our stations because, like a lot of companies, we're spread out all over the world, United States, so we had to go to the stations and just basically go in and put the headsets on them and get their feedback, and what do you like, what don't you like, what would you like to see, would this be helpful, and then take that feedback back to the executives to get the buy-in from them.
Kevin, great. So you're going to have to help me remember. So you're on about getting the end user support, okay? I will forget by the end of it, but it's good to have a little summary if we can. Mm-hmm. David, over to you.
Well, I would underline the end user support. I think this year we rolled out to another truck division, and I would say that emphasis came more from the other users demanding and saying, hey, it's not fair, how come these people get it but not the other? That drove all of that design of how to do it. It became just a little exercise in math to come up with some numbers that everyone knew. Let's do it, put in the numbers because you got to check the boxes off. So yeah, I would definitely say you got to get the user input. If you're not getting that excitement there, then you need to retool.
Okay, thank you. Matt?
I think in the first panel this morning, there was an interesting comment around getting with the trainers and seeing where their pain points are. Well, I am one of the trainers, so my pain point is really doing three-dimensional things in 2D on a whiteboard and trying to expect that people can actually see that. It's amazing how few people can take a 2D model and actually visualize it in their head in 3D. So we overcome that by moving to VR and just forcing it into their experience. And so that's kind of my key thing, is making sure that those that are actually gonna, in my case, it's an instructor-led class, make sure that the instructors are being asked about what are their pain points that they're trying to overcome. Like I would usually use a chain, because the way a conductor hangs from pole to pole is the shape of a chain hanging, so it's called a catenary. And so I would use that to try to do like different, examples, and it's just not the same. The shape is right, but the examples aren't exactly the same. So that was one of my pain points that I knew I could make better with VR delivery as opposed to whiteboard and chain delivery.
So just to be clear, though, I think to summarize it, it's about making sure there's a real problem that you're solving.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the execs aren't training. The users are getting the training, but they don't really know the benefits of moving to the new technology. So you got to see past both groups and know where you're going, have a little bit of vision by already understanding how the tech can help out.
And it's something I'm sure we've heard before, isn't it? That you have to solve a real problem.
Yeah.
XR may not be the answer for everything.
No, it's not.
And Brian, I know you're a super expert in this kind of field, and I've learned a lot by listening to you. And you can carry on that theme, but it'd be interesting in any other themes you've got. Again, remembering we're kind of the single most critical first step for an enterprise trying to build a strong ROI.
Well, I tell you, it's hard to solve for what you don't understand. So I love that I'm hearing all this talking to end users. That's exactly right. But equally important is to make sure that you understand what the real problems are. Like what's the company facing and what keeps your execs up at night. A lot of times we get put in this unenviable position of being both purveyors of and protectors from the same technologies, because one of the dangers of XR in particular is that as humans, we're very visually oriented. And so it's really, really sexy, lots of sizzle and stuff. And if you don't know what you're doing, you can get a lot of folks kind of clamoring to want to use the tools. But unless you're solving some real world business problem, when the bill comes due at the end of the day, you're left with your pockets turned out. So we always start with trying to really intimately understand what is the business process that we're trying to facilitate. The other thing that's really nice about that is technologies by definition will churn. That's the definite, they're going to continually upgrade. And so if you go really hard after the business processes that actually pay you, then it makes those technologies plug and playable to a greater degree. And as the technologies refresh or become better over time, which they inevitably will, then it's a lot easier to plug and play those, and your ROI stays intact. So hope that's helpful. But
yeah, no, thank you. We've got now Jackson, sorry.
Yeah, so I would say the first step is finding not only the problem to fix, right, but if you're going to run a proof of concept or a pilot and you ask for volunteers, everybody's going to put their hand up, right, because they think they're getting something for nothing. But when it comes time to do pilot stuff, all of a sudden people don't want to do pilot stuff. So you have to have real champions, and you can't be afraid to pull the technology and the resources and give it to somebody else. When we were launching our proof of concept for Lens, we were hesitant at first, and we tried to convince people to use the technology, and that was wasted time. Don't waste your time. Find people that are going to pick it up and they're going to use it. So, my piece of advice.
Okay, so a theme on working with the end users, but the right end users, the one that can actually. Okay, perfect. Jenny.
Yeah, I'm actually going to circle back to what Kevin said at Delta and go a step further. So not only do you find the end users and what problem you're solving for them, for Duke by Duke, for utility by utility, we actually build in-house. We build versus buy at Duke Energy more than anything else. And so while we're building, actually before we even put hands on keyboard, we have a design thinking session with several end users that the business picks out, both the trainers, the trainees. It's very important. They don't think it's important, but it's more important to have the trainees than it is to have the trainers, because they're the ones absorbing the knowledge that will help in the field with safety, reliability, all the things that we need to solve for. And they can actually tell us their pain points in that design thinking session. We actually build a problem statement. So what problem are you having and how are we solving it with this technology? And then we bring them along the process. We build in an iterative agile method. And so every 2 weeks, they're getting in headset and they're testing and giving us feedback on different features we've completed. And they're helping us build our backlog and actually build the training that they're going to be using, training and qualification. So not only does that make them champions, they're proud of the project that they've helped build. They're telling all their buddies about it. They're explaining what the ROI is. And they're actually giving that back to us. We do a little NPS survey now in headset. It used to be on a Teams form, which was no one ended up going to do. But now we can actually do it in headset verbally as well, where it's, did you like this training? Did you not like this training? Would you recommend it to your peers? So quick NPS survey answers gives us that ROI. And those people are excited about it and are telling everyone else about it and saying it's solving our problem. Like, we don't like this training because it wasn't like the real world, and now it is. And so having them build it with us has really made a huge difference in getting that ROI easily.
And that's a great point. Thank you. So I think, remember the summary, I think it's making sure you're working with the end users, making sure they're the right end users, making sure you're solving the right problems and getting the feedback from that. I'm going to be a little bit controversial, but none of you have actually spoken about the stakeholders, the people with the money. Yeah? It kind of assumed, and I know it's probably where you are in terms of your development of the XR solutions. You're actually working with end users and deploying solutions. But any 1 or 2 sentences on how you convince the budget holders, normally the bean counters and the accountants that hold our budgets. Any kind of thoughts on that? Because without that, you're not going to get the end users involved anyway. Any little snippets or insights?
I could throw something. I mean, we always talk about the ROI with the stakeholders, the ones giving us the money. We're not making money from this, but we're improving safety. Retention of our employees. When we've gone out and kind of talked to our new hires, a lot of our new hires are right out of high school. This is maybe their first job. And they get out there and they leave in a month or 2 months. And when we ask them why, it's because they didn't understand their job. They were a little afraid of it. So the retention with getting the real world training, and like I always say, it's a lot better to put them in a headset, put them around an airplane. If they break something, we can just hit reset. If we put them out on an active flight and they break something, 400 people's flight just got canceled and it cost us several $1 million, and it looks really bad. So, and then now they're upset and they did something. And then again, the retention's the biggest thing, and the safety. And then seat time. Seat time for our trainers when we're bringing them back in for training. You're bringing them out of the operation. There's nobody to replace them in the operation while they're in the training. So if we bring them in and put them in an e-learning course for 6 hours, that's 6 hours of time that they're not out working. We bring them in we can reduce that by 50%. In a virtuality, that's 50% more we're getting back in the seat time. So there's your ROI. Yep.
Perfect. Any other? I'm thinking a little bit about how you actually influence the C-suite as well.
So I would say that any executive worth their salt realizes that for Boeing that their paychecks are signed on the factory floor. The closer you get to that airplane, the better you are, right? So if we do this right, and I love that they're talking about, go to the end users and stuff like that, we should never have to fight our own battles. We are just kind of handmaidens for the technology. It's actually their project, right? So to the ownership that you said, Jenny, that's exactly right. If we can go out there and actually solve a real problem for the mechanics and help them to build things in a safer, faster, less expensive way, that kind of speaks for itself. And I generally find that to be a lot more powerful than trying to do any kind of a sales type thing and show them the money. That's really what it comes down to.
Perfect. Okay, and just in my experience, when I've spoken to many people around the world, actually getting the executives, like anybody in the experience, they always, we've chatted about it earlier, they always a bit nervous, they don't want to be looked like a fool or an idiot and stuff like that, but it's really important you actually get them into that experience, and then you can do the ROI. Perfect, okay, well I'm going to go on to the third question, which, when you started out, or when starting out, what makes a proof of concept strong enough to win support whilst keeping costs low? I think there's probably people in the audience saying, I really want to do this technology. We've talked a lot about POC, you know, and the other panel did. But how do you do that in a way that's not going to cost a fortune but still gets the value? Now, David, I'm going to start with you.
So one of the things, in fact, we are in the middle of a new feature, testing out some new technology. And I don't know if I can give a plug, but Vertex is here, and we have a technology that we're trying out with them.
I think you just did.
I did, didn't I? Can I pull that back? No. Anyhow, my point is, this year, Jackson, you could probably back me up here, has been terrible economically. Our budgets are being cut left and right. And so we were living that whole question of, like, how do we get by with a proof of concept with $0, and then show it off to people and make it, have some relevancy, right? Now, I think your key point here is who is the person presenting it, selling it, because that person, and I never, as an engineer, I never thought I would say this, but the value of a salesperson is incredible. They can take something and make it look great, even though it's just half-baked, and they can kind of fill in the gaps of where the proof of concept may not be complete, but they can paint that picture for whoever, be it executives, stakeholders, and make it sound right and understand where that goes and how to envision where this could go, right? And that's where I would say if you have salespeople in your enterprise that can help speak to it and tell the story, that will make up for a lot of what some of the technical difficulties it would take to get a proof of concept complete. Proof of concepts are really just proof of concept. It's not supposed to be a complete solution. So you pick an area and have someone help deliver it. And I'll tell you, it's not me. It's not me. I do a horrible job of it. I have someone on my team that's great at it. And I've seen him sell things to not only our customers, but also our C-suite. It's been great.
I think it's a great insight. Thank you, David. I'm not sure, we have this kind of term salesperson as being a kind of, in my experience, the people that are very passionate and knowledgeable, and it really solves a problem to many of your point. Yeah, so let's not think that you all need to be, proper salespeople. You just need to really know and solve real problems. So, Matt, same question for you.
So when we were going through the development of the NESC training, the clearance training, I was guiding the experience of what the training was going to look like, and then we would test every so often with the other members of my group that are scattered across the footprint. And everybody had lots of good ideas, but we ended up using POC. We call it minimum viable product. There we go. And really had to think through what was most important to get it operational and usable for those of us that were going to do the training. So we had to make some, hard decisions on, okay, I'd really like it to do that, but if that's going to cost us a month, I can live without it, unless I really, really needed it, right? Some particular function to make the training as seamless as we could make it. So really just thinking through, as the trainer or as the group of us that we're going to train, what do you absolutely have to make it effective? And so not only are the folks in there with me going to be trainers, they're also trainees. I mean, they're being students while I'm doing the training to get them up to speed to be able to answer and interact with the questions that are going to come in, because the book's that thick and it's a bunch of engineers trying to be lawyers. So you can imagine the fun complexity of reading through that thing. So, I have enough history with it that I can answer at least some of the questions. But it was a two-way street, throwing out the ideas and then figuring out what we really needed to make it successful.
Okay, brilliant. So again, trying to do my summary. So David, we've got to talk about kind of selling the proof of concept. You might not be able to do all of it, but you can paint a big picture. Matt, you're being very clear on what the kind of features are that are the kind of most important ones.
To make it work.
Brian.
I think something that I found to be really powerful, in addition to kind of putting the ROI, kind of figures to it, is that you pull on something you said earlier, Mark, and you're exactly right. Take an executive and put them in the experience. We actually had a situation where it was shared with us later that they were looking to shut us down. And they came out as a last kind of, to be fair, to see what actually we were doing and what it was about. They came out to visit what we were doing. And we walked them through the whole process of what it takes for a mechanic to do wiring limbs, to run the wiring routes on the plane. And so we got out the 20-plus foot scroll of drawings and took the highlighter and got to go through there and mark that stuff up. All the research that goes before we can ever touch the plane, right? And then we got on the plane and we said, now forget all that. Pulled it up and pulled up the menu and then put the wiring over his head. And he looked up, and in a moment, he got that. You saw this big, we call it the hollow smile, big smile on his face, like, wow, And he said, when I came in here, I didn't really understand what you guys were about, but he said, man, do I get it now? He said, the problem is, now my dilemma is, where else am I going to get funding to help this out? So I think it's really powerful, that user empathy. And a lot of times it's hard, when you don't have that kind of experience to really understand what these folks are dealing with on a daily basis. So.
Some great points, thank you. Jackson.
Yeah, so for us, it was our MVP was finding an off-the-shelf solution and not trying to think outside the box. It's like going to IKEA and grabbing your solution and implementing it. But it also goes back to what I was saying earlier about having the right people that are doing the proof of concept for you, and not wasting time, because time is money, right? So find the right people. Don't spend a lot of time on your MVP. Get it out there, get it to the right people, and don't run your proof of concept forever. You've got the right people out there. You should have a short proof of concept. You're going to figure it out if you're fixing the problem or not.
Can I just pull on that one a little bit, Jackson? Not running it forever. Do you kind of have some measurables that you do to start with? Is it based on your customer or the end user's feedback? How do you know what the right length of time is to do a proof of concept?
Yeah, so in our particular case, we discovered along the way, because what we thought our metrics were going to be isn't really what the success factors were. It was time savings was the obvious one, but then there was the relationship building, which we never counted on that, because now we're seeing into their world and we're starting to build these relationships where we never had that before. So that was a key metric, and based on the feedback from our end user, that was the success. It's what are they telling us? What can we take up to the C-suite and share? And that really, really helped us sell it.
Okay, thank you. Jenny.
Yeah, I'm going to be controversial since that's how you started this. We're talking about all our successes, and I want to talk about a challenge that I see with this all the time. So we've built over 36 different applications over the last 9 years at Duke Energy that have been implemented, used. Some are still used, some are not, depending on who leaves and who comes back. And one of the biggest challenges I see is stakeholders have a dollar value. They see, I want to pay X amount of dollars for this pilot, MVP, minimum viable product, MMP, minimum marketable product. Everyone uses different terms, but really they want the most out of the least amount of money, and they want to pilot it to make sure we can get metrics back and see if it works. What I see all the time is, so the stakeholder, the executive that's paying for it, is pushing, go, 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 go. We want it fast, we want it cheap, we want it now. We want it minimum viable. Get it out in the field, pilot it. But then the people who are building it with us get so excited about what they're building, we have to really tailor it down every single time, like what you were saying, is they want to not build a minimum viable product. They want to build a complete product, and we have to keep telling them, we only have so many dollars, and we have to get this out in 3 months, and we have to do, but they're like, but it would be so cool if we added this, and it would be so wonderful if we added, and we're like, we agree. We just need to make sure that the stakeholder who's paying for this is happy with the results, getting that ROI afterwards that they wanted to see. And sometimes it's hard to measure those too, like the one we're working on right now for metering services, safe driver training. Everyone wants it, safe driver simulation. Everyone wants it because our KPIs, our bottom dollar, our pockets are being affected. by too many preventable vehicle accidents, too many PVAs. So everyone wants to use this product, but we're piloting it in one group for a very small amount of money, and we're building it in-house. And so everyone wants it to be perfect and polished and ready to go in January when we're piloting an MVP, like a POC, right? Everyone uses the term synonymously almost, and it depends on who you're talking to, how they receive that. But that's just a challenge we find the 36 apps we've built. We get that every time. Who's paying for it, what they want out of it, and then who's building it with us. They get so excited, which is good, and everyone wants to use it, but we need to make sure it's minimum so then we can get more money to really make it the amazing product when we get that ROI to leadership.
Jenny, you bring up some really interesting stuff there. I think terminology is an interesting one. POC versus MPV. We all probably use it interchangeably, but I definitely see some differences, and maybe if we get a chance, we'll come back to that. Yeah, let me get on to Kevin as well. Oh, go on in.
I was going to say, pulling on what Jenny said, I think there's a lot more maybe meat on the bone. That MVP, not only is it minimal in terms of cost and that type of stuff, but there's a second feature that we often don't talk about. If you overdo your prototype so that it looks so slick and polished and everything, you end up, you can snag yourself in this problem where your executives think that it's finished and we'll do it tomorrow.
And that it's cheap and it's perfect and you can do it in 3 months every single time, cheap and perfect because you did this one MVP, and then they think that's final and they don't continue giving you money to build out what you really wanted to build. You're so right.
And the gentleman earlier up the forward, Mohammed Anwar, said about, well, we only want kind of every 12 months and things like that. So suddenly you haven't got the opportunity to update it. Right. So you're kind of stuck in this quagmire. So yeah, go on.
About go ugly early and often. Because if you can overdo your prototype and you end up with this false sense of security with the executives and stuff where they push you, well, let's push it out there tomorrow, and it's like that's not going to work. This is relatively smoke and mirrors, yeah. So yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to bring that up because I think that can bite you sometimes.
And what's amazing to us might not be. I mean, what's amazing to them is just okay for us, but to them it's all new, shiny technology, and it looks amazing. But we're like, no, that's just minimum. We could do so much more.
Yeah. I think we got a dose of reality when I had all the lawyers come in and they sat through the training, and our collaborative room was struggling to keep everybody connected. And so what we thought was pretty good, and when we brought in enough folks, then it kind of fell apart. And so we learned that, we better fix that before we go out and really production use it. And the lawyers were a good group to test that on.
Kevin, sorry, we've not come to you,
No,
your
you're
good
fine.
self.
No, I was just sitting there listening, all great stuff, and then I'm going back to my POC in 2018. And the challenge we ran into is, it was, like you said, it was shiny, it was great. I set it up, the executives, they loved it. And then my VP sat me down and she said, okay, it's really cool, but how are we going to prove that it works? Right. I mean, I can't tell my bosses, hey, this is really nice, but how are we going to prove? So we had to think about it. So real quick, what we did is, it's the only way I could think to prove it, other than just asking people if you like it. So I chose a small station, Milwaukee. I sent a facilitator that trains to the station. We did not tell the station we were coming. We kept it top secret. He basically flew in. He set up in the concourse with the passengers. I told him, don't get arrested. Be sitting there all day, with your camera out. But I said, I want you to just watch the crews work. And so our POC was an aircraft walk around. Some of my airline colleagues knows what it is. Every plane that arrives, as soon as it arrives, one person's responsible to walk around that airplane, check for damage, check for, we call it FOD, on the ground, foreign object debris, because as you know, a zipper can take out an airplane. Yes. Pick that stuff up, walk around safely without doing it unsafe by going under the airplane where you can hit your head on the MD-88s when they're out there. So he sat there and watched our facilitator, watched crews work about 6 flights. And maybe 10% of them did the proper procedures out of the whole day. So I went in the next day, walked in the break room with my VR equipment, set it up, and said, hey, I got this VR. We're going to let you guys try it all day. So all of them went through, and one thing that stuck out, I heard one of the agents walk away and said, hey, go try that really cool game out. It's really cool. And I'm thinking, training's a game. This could be good.
And so we try to not use the term game.
But I was like, this is all right. So they all went through it, and they did it. They were challenging each other because it gave them a score. Go try it again, get a higher score. I sent the facilitator back the next day to watch the same crew, and he called me. He said, they're doing it. I said, what do you mean they're doing it? He said, nobody is missing a step. today. They're doing the procedures 100%. They're picking up things. They're walking around the airplane. They're not taking shortcuts. It works.
That's awesome.
So,
Justification there, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Game over. Well done. That's
right.
brilliant.
Mic drop.
Okay, I just, before we ask ask the audience to ask questions, just my little bit on proof of concept versus MPV. In my eyes, they are two different steps. And literally, it's in the words. You know, the first one is, does this concept work? Can we get proof from it? The second one is you're testing it in a proper environment. And I think as an industry, we ought to be a little bit tighter on that, you know, and be very clear, well, this is the stage we're going through. We clearly communicate that with the executives and the end users, and then we move into the next bit. So that's my little 2 pence of a bit there. But I'd love to throw it out to the audience. I think we've got a mic. Alex got a mic there. Any questions? I have got some more questions to these, but I'd much prefer it comes from the audience. So hands up. It would be great if you could just say who you're with as well.
I have a question to Kevin. I'm curious to learn from your experience. So you mentioned a couple of factors that you are trying to improve, like improving safety and retention. I'm curious to know what kind of KPIs you measured and how were you able to directly correlate the XR solution with safety and retention.
I think it was for Kevin, wasn't it? Did you ask?
It was for Kevin, yes.
Okay. Yeah. So that's a really tough one to answer right now because just until recently we started really tracking the data from the headsets. In the past, it was hard to show improvement on safety without over years. You guys know that. We can't say, well, in the past couple of weeks since we started using this, the safety has improved. That can be anything. So hard to answer that question because we just really started tracking the data this year with new technology. So I'll have a better answer for you next year at the next conference. So.
I think you bring a really good point. That, psychologically, it's called the Hawthorne effect, right? And so sometimes you'll see improvements in behavior just because now you're being paid attention to. And so you have to be super careful. And I really appreciate the wisdom of what you said, that you can end up getting false positives that aren't sustained. So it's really good.
But I think it's a good point you make, Kevin, and again, something I would emphasize for everybody to do. Measure before you start your proof of concept and pilot. Capture that information, because then you can say, the number of people I've said, you know, what was the ROI? Well, we didn't measure how we used to do it. Like, oh, you're never going to, so please remember to measure before. Alex, I think there's someone over there, right?
Hello, everyone. This is Vincent Hernandez from American Bureau of Shipping. And this is for anyone on the panel. Quick question. How do you help, or what guidance can you provide for overcoming the same old new hurdle? Now, I'll elaborate a little. When there is leadership change and you're working towards a POC or MVP, now you have to kind of reconvince, rework that management change, and often more than not, they want to put their own input in. By all means, we want to hear their input, but sometimes they want to try the same challenges you solved years before into your POC or MVP. So what feedback would you provide?
Thank you, Vince. Yeah, who wants to take that? It's basically how do you kind of convince again after you've convinced and they've moved on?
Yeah, I mean, we have constant movement in leadership just like any other business. And one of my most recent VPs, she had no interest in putting the headset on. And so I just had to do my best at like me getting in the headset, bringing up what she would have seen on the PC and at least showing her that way. So being adaptable and being able to, you know, deal with folks that maybe don't want to put the headgear on. When we have put the headgear on, folks, it's instantaneous, like we were talking about before. They get it, especially with the safety scenarios, because they maybe have a fleeting knowledge of what we're talking about, but once you get them in the scene and you explain it a little bit, they're like, oh, I get it now. Especially because for clearances, it's one of the biggest things that we get sued over, right? Because inadvertently touching our product is really, really bad. You either get hurt really bad or you die. So you don't want that. So they understand the consequences and why clearances are such an important thing. And then once we show them how we're training it in VR, it makes a lot more sense. But when you can't, then you have to be able to pivot and adapt and go a different way.
Yeah, again, I can add that a little bit because, again, we had our POC before COVID, and we were like ready to go. And then we got stopped, and then coming back after COVID, I was really having problems picking it back up. We know money was tight, and we didn't see. So it took a couple years, and I kind of like gave up a little bit because I had other jobs to do with Delta. So until, very interesting, one day I literally got a Teams message from our director of safety and said, can you come over and join this meeting? So I walked in the room, I said, what do you need? And he said, we're trying to solve a problem for our de-ice program. Again, all their planes are de-iced. And I said, what's the problem? And he said, well, the problem is everybody, when they're trained in July and August, they have to get evaluated in November, December, January, see if they know that they're doing the job right. And the only way to do it is to go watch them do an active flight. And if they're not doing it right on an active flight, then that's not good. And we're only doing like 5 a day throughout the whole domestic system of 300 and something stations. We're getting 5 done in one day. So we're never seeing every, we're getting like 10%. And they said, we were thinking virtual reality. And I went, it'll work. So we put the program together. And I always tell this because I'll never forget, we started using Arbor for the first time that year. And I pulled it up about 2 weeks into, and I was looking at the data, and I was actually called, and I said, is this data correct? Because it's showing that we did about 200 today. And they said, no, it's correct. We were doing 200 evaluations a day. Wow. And now we're in our 3rd year, and I think last year we did over 4,000 evaluations compared to we would do about 20 in a season.
Going back to scope creep of thing, it's the kind of the management of data is the first thing that gets dropped. But actually, it's one of the most important things in there. So you kind of got to, whatever you can do, keep it in there. But
one thing I would add to that, and this is less about technology and more about kind of speaking to the heart. Sometimes the timing is just off, right? And so no, by the way, no doesn't mean no in this regard. No means maybe not now, maybe not in that format, maybe with a different leader. So the big thing is you better believe in it really hard. You better really care hard because you're going to run into roadblocks and you're going to have some bad days. That's okay. You got colleagues to talk to about that. But I think there's not one of us up here that hasn't had to fight some pretty mighty battles and time and again. And just because you put that one away doesn't mean it's over. So.
Yeah, I was going to add to that. I can't tell you how many times I've sat in front of some executive's office waiting. Or maybe 30-second window because they're new in the office, they've been switched, they've moved around. You know, and what always comes to mind is I was always told, better have your elevator speech. And nowadays it's more like I'll have a presentation deck ready to go. I'll have a set of slides because you don't always have the VR headset, you don't always have a tablet waiting. But you can always run a video. And if you get 10 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes, if you can show them the most important things you want to show them in that 10 seconds or 1 minute, you've done your job, right? And you've brought them all up to speed. You can have another conversation later. But I've been in those situations where it's like, no. But then 6 months later, yeah, let's do it. So you got to be persistent. Mm-hmm.
One thing I've learned speaking to all of you is you're all tenacious in the nicest kind of way, but having to push this through, yeah, I think to Vince's question, you know, you just got to keep going. You have the data, you have the testimonials, you have the presentations. I think, David, that's a really important bit that you're ready to go at any stage, but you have to almost be an intrapreneur, if not an entrepreneur, to be able to do it. So I'm sure everybody's out there.
Yeah.
Sales.
Yeah, sales. We have 27 seconds left, so...
Right there.
Okay, perfect. So I'll reiterate the question for the video and for everyone else out there. It's about the concern of end users that VR, XR is going to take away their jobs. Okay, and that's a very valid point, and I know these people have some quick answers, guys, because we've run out of time, but just a sentence or two.
I think one is involve folks, involve your end users. You know, if you can show them how it's not going to take their job, it's going to transform their job, right? And they're still important, and then advocate for them, That's another thing is, you know, we kind of come swooping in there with new technologies and stuff, and I think it's really important that you think critically about what effect is that going to have? What's the fallout?
Right.
So,
Anyone else?
Yeah, I can jump in. I mean, because we have our facilitation team. One of them is here with me. He's been the last few. He's in the back, Brent. He's one of our and biggest supporter of VR, but he's not worried about it. You still need that facilitation. You still need that classroom. The VR is just the support and the enforcing of learning for the new hires or the employees.
I will say the trainers that's the first thing they hear from us is you're replacing our training. You can't replace our training. We are the only ones that can do it. And so bringing them along to build it, like just like you said, and showing them how it's going to help their job, not take it away, is the most crucial thing because we can't build a training without the trainers.
Right.
So showing them that we need you instead of we're replacing you has been really crucial for us.
Yep.
You know what? It's in the word, certainly in my world, augmented. We're augmenting the workers, not replacing them.
Right.
So we've already got it in the word, so we're sorted. We're out of time. Thank you very much, panel. You've been fantastic to work with. Thank you very much for the questions and listening. A quick round of applause would be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bear with me a sec, 'cause I need to get a piece of paper and introduce the next speaker. Hold on.